This program is brought to you by the Genesis Communications Network, a world leader in talk radio since 1998. Visit GCNlive.com today.
You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We've got a really fascinating episode for you this week. We're going to escape the UFO subject, I guess, for the most part, unless we're talking about possible star people. We'll be talking later to Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, who's been one of our favorite guests, and she's agreed to come back on the show. But right now we have a few other things to talk about. First, of course, if you follow the back and forth about the appearance last week of Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Marden, you'll notice that Kathleen has actually become a participant in our forums. Not like, every other message, but she's posted a few. And that's good. We always like our guests to participate. Stan has done it a couple of times, but he's not a forum guy. But I hope to continue to encourage him because I think it's important to get a lot of these insights because our forum members can be sometimes a little bit blunt about what they believe, but you got to consider all points of view. And I think that's the biggest criticism I have of Stan over the years. He seems unwilling to change, and that's unfortunate. As a corollary of that, consider Kevin Randall, who has backtracked on some things that he's written about, because he continues to investigate to verify the things he's written and see whether the sources pan out or not. And this is probably true with his latest book on Roswell for the 21st century, where some of the stuff he no longer accepts as true. And I think maybe someone like Stan ought to consider the same thing. Don't just accept that MJ-12 is real and the Eisenhower briefing document was real. Go back and look at it. What do you think, Chris?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for investigators and researchers to allow themselves permission to reevaluate positions that they've taken based on either new evidence, new revelations, or, the influence of real deep insight from your critics. And I've always tried to be as open-minded and as malleable in that sense as I can. And I think it's a really good indication that someone who's been in the field for over 40 years, as Kevin Randall has, to be able to temper their conclusions that they've arrived at over the years based on reevaluating evidence or, obtaining new evidence and insight into a particular case or a particular question. I do think there's hope for the old guard if someone like a Kevin Randall can go ahead and amend his feelings, his opinions, and conclusions. So I think that's a real positive step forward. Someone like Stanton, who of course has become attached at the hip to MJ-12, and I think it's a little bit more difficult for him to possibly be swayed because he really has spent so much time and was paid thousands of dollars to come to the conclusion that he's been steadfastly sticking to over the past 35, 40 years. And it's, someone like Stan, he's almost I would say he's an icon. He's almost, maybe he should be on the Mount Rushmore of ufology or something, but, someone like that.
Right, that's an interesting point of view. Mount Rushmore of ufology. I'm going to ask you before we go on with that thread, who else would we put up there? John Keel?
Yeah, I think Keel, Valet, Uncle Stan would probably go up there. There's a number. Of course, they're, as time marches on, we're losing them. But someone like a Richard Hall, I think, a lot of people really have the utmost respect for his work, although he really didn't do much. He never really was a field investigator, very good researcher, but someone like a Ray Stanford, I think once he comes fully out and reveals the information that he has, I think he will definitely be front runner for that particular position. But time marches on, and we need to temper this pop culture programming with the facts, with evidence, with the type of insight and thinking that the subject, at least in my estimation, deserves.
Now, we've been off politics for a while, and I'm not going to change that. But I've had email exchanges with a few of our listeners. And I think the important thing here is we're dealing in a field where our biggest argument is that we're arguing against the conventional wisdom. We're pointing out that evidence is being ignored about some pretty strange things. But when someone then wants to say, okay, I'm exploring the unknown and listening to the Paracast, but if you dare to express a political point of view that's different from mine, however wacky it might be, that's a terrible, terrible transgression. That's absurd. The point of the Paracast is to look at ideas that are not being accepted by science. That which science is damned, as someone once said. So we're doing that. We're looking at cutting edge of science, and the interest or the ability or the willingness to look at a lot of different subjects from a different point of view or try to look at these alternate points of view goes throughout what you do. It's not just about the paranormal, but about anything you do. Consider the news of the day. Are you getting news from one source with a certain political point of view that matches yours? Or are you listening to different sources, getting a wide range of ideas, and then coming to what you consider to be a fair conclusion? Anyway, I'm going to ask one more thing before we get on with Ardy on our next segment. Chris, if you had $200,000 tomorrow, what would you do with it? Other than bills or a new home?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, the San Luis Valley Camera Project would have full-time employees, at least initially, to get the rest of the system up. That would be one priority that I would have. I would also probably take 10% of it and put it into a worthy cause, pay it forward, and finance a couple of trips to places that I've been, kind of on my bucket list where I've wanted to go to do some quality research, upgrade some gear, possibly upgrade my my old Ford SUV. And why do you ask? You got a ship coming in there, Gino?
Well, no, I'm thinking about a ship going out. And that is, if you can get $200,000, would it be worth the price of admission to colonize Mars? $200,000 apiece. Now, that's not the initial price according to Elon Musk. It would be millions. But if he could reuse, launch craft, and do all these things, he hopes that someday, maybe 10 years from now perhaps, you'll be able to spend $200,000 to take a one-way trip to Mars, colonize the planet. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not that anxious to leave this planet yet. And it's possible the forces of life and death may compel that decision. But he's talking about having 100 to 200 people per spacecraft, the trip taking between 80 and 150 days. Wow.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm a little bit too far down the river to really even consider something like that. If I was in my 20s, and that would be a whole different story. It would be a historic adventure of a lifetime, and I would consider something like that. I am quite adventurous, and I do at times kind of consider myself a bit of a pioneer, but right now, I don't know. Maybe.
Let me just be brief about before we go on. He's saying they're going to send an unmanned test aircraft to a test spaceship to Mars by 2018, get the first manned voyage to Mars by 2022, but it's going to be decades after that before you're sending routinely 100 to 200 people. So I'm not ready for that. We are ready for Ardy Sixkiller Clarke and some fascinating folklore with Gene and Chris. You're in
The Paracast.
The award-winning graphic converter, the universal genius for photo editing on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for this Swiss Army knife photo editing app. It gives you all you expect from a top-flight image editing app with tons of features, and most important, it's easy to use. Get 20% off from lemkesoft.de/Gene. That's lemkesoft.de/Gene. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Are you happy washing your hands with harsh chemicals? Are you happy doing laundry with detergents? Are you happy paying high prices? Find your happiness with Pure Soap. These all-natural, earth-friendly Pure Soaps are the very best you've ever used. Buy in bulk. Get a 12, 36, or 48-month supply, or get items individually and still save big. You're getting soap products twice as good as what you're using now, earth-friendly and natural soaps. Your family deserves the best. Happiness is 5starsoap.com. Why not put your money up the drain for a change? See them at 5starsoap.com or call 1-800-340-7091 for a catalog. Cal Ben Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils. See their full selection of soaps at 5starsoap.com. That's F-I-V-E starsoap.com. Or call 1-800-340-7091 for a catalog.
Has neck, back, or shoulder pain got you down? Go to sunshine-pillows.com and get soothing comfort, support, and pain relief fast. Their microwavable heat therapy pillows and wraps treat neck and shoulder pain, reduce stress, and relax the soul. An ergonomic pillow from Sunshine Pillows supports your head and neck on long trips or when simply resting at home. Be good to yourself. Visit sunshine-pillows.com. sunshine-pillows.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pileski of the Pileski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Just want to let you listeners know that we have not one but two radio shows. In addition to the Paracast, we have After the Paracast, our special weekly podcast. It's an exclusive feature of the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com to learn more about our subscription service. We give you a commercial-free version of this show and better quality audio and lots of extra features and special free ebook offers for long-term subscriptions. Go to plus.theparacast.com. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke has a new book out called More Encounters with Star People, Urban American Indians Tell Their Stories. Ardy, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
By the way, listeners, there is some noise on her phone line. It's just, one of those things that everybody has a phone connection that works as well as it should. In any case, in writing this book, is this additional tales you didn't have room to put in the earlier book, or is this something that came by after?
The first book was stories that have been told to me by Native people who lived on the reservation, and this book are stories that are told to me by individuals who are Native American but do not live on the reservation. So there's a little, one of the things I wanted to share with my readers is the uniqueness of the stories, the difference in the stories between the reservation and non-reservation Indians, and also, give them a variety of stories in terms of the different themes that run through ufology. So it was, 78% of American Indians live off of reservations, not on reservations. And I think that's something that the general public really is not aware of, that there are a lot of us out there who live in small towns and rural areas and in cities. And so I chose for this book to tell their stories.
Now, do you find in looking at those who live off the reservation that maybe they lose, because of their assimilation into general society, lose some of those traditions?
I don't find that they lose the tradition, so to speak, but what I find is that many of the people I interviewed lived off the reservations because they had gone to the universities and had gotten college degrees and couldn't find employment back on their reservation and chose to live off the reservation to work. Others married non-natives and chose to live off the reservation. So there were, but maintained a close relationship with the reservation, had grown up hearing the star stories, had to go back for traditional ceremonies, and wanted to make sure their children were exposed to those kind of things. So it wasn't that they had left behind those traditions. It's just that they lived in a different setting and literally bridged two worlds.
One thing I've noticed is many natives that leave the reservation do try to stick fairly close. So, for instance, out here around the Dene, the Navajo and Apache reservations, the towns you find right near the reservation, like Gallup and Farmington, Flagstaff, these towns have large Native American populations, possibly because people want to stay close to family members and at least be in the same region.
And at the same time, they want to work.
You're right. That's always good. You don't want to be totally subservient to any sort of handouts and that sort of thing.
Right.
And I think Native people have pride.
Reservations in the Northwest, have as much as 60-70% unemployment. And in order to have jobs, people leave the reservation.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Now, when you look at the information they present to you about star people from people who are off the reservation, any material differences, or is it just people living in different places telling the same stories?
Well, I think there are differences because what you have in part is a population that many of them are university graduates. Some are even doctors or have PhDs. And so they look at their experiences in a little different light than some of those who lived on the reservation. They are more questioning. They are more skeptical. And one of the things that obviously has changed over time with the visitors. Even elders are telling me this, that there are more than one star nation that is visiting Earth, that some of them have are not positive, that they are people that we should, or entities that we should be concerned about, what their motives are. And so that certainly came through strongly, so that there was a uniqueness, and I don't know. Everyone I meet, among Indian communities, know these events occur, but they're not discussed openly. But the stories, as I began collecting stories, before long I found myself like a half researcher, half therapist, half friend of people who really needed to share their stories because they had no one else to tell. And as I point out in my book, I think a lot of people in mainstream America or wherever all over the world have these experiences but simply carry these secrets and just do not tell anybody. People never really ask. I point out in my book that I was at a barbecue after my first book came out, and there was a retired teacher there from Colorado, and he asked me, what is your book about? And I told him about, and he said, well, I've had an experience. I had an encounter with a UFO. And all of a sudden, there's 10 people there. There were 2 doctors, medical doctors, and they both had experiences. There was an engineer who was a petroleum engineer, and he worked exclusively in South America for oil companies, and he would travel around looking for oil. There was a graduate student, and out of the 10 people there, 6 of them had an experience. So I think that what we're finding is that more people are coming forth, but they're still very cautious about who they tell and how they admit that they have had these experiences.
You see, that is very common in UFO research, that lots of people have strange experiences happen. And our guest last week, Stanton Friedman, mentions this, that he's giving a lecture and he asks people, how many of you have had something happen? And a number of people will admit it. How many of you have reported it? And only a fraction of those people would admit any such thing. We've got a lot more to come with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. Joining Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Has neck, back, or shoulder pain got you down? Go to sunshine-pillows.com and get soothing comfort, support, and pain relief fast. Their microwavable heat therapy pillows and wraps treat neck and shoulder pain, reduce stress, and relax the soul. An ergonomic pillow from Sunshine Pillows supports your head and neck on long trips or when simply resting at home. Be good to yourself. Visit sunshine-pillows.com. sunshine-pillows.com.
Are the answers to your present and future hidden in your past? Akashic readings help you learn to unlock the answers for love, finances, weight loss, self-esteem, confusion, grief and loss, and more. Akashic email readings by Dr. Kelly Maroon, PhD, are specially priced right now. Learn more at Dr. Kelly Maroon's website, akashicuniversal.com, spelled AKASHIC universal.com. Change your life today. Become one with your true path with intention on purpose. Visit akashicuniversal.com.
Dr. Otto Warburg won the Nobel Prize for discovering how cells breathe. He also discovered how normal cells turn into tumor cells. He discovered the one prime cause of cancer was cellular oxygen deficiency. Dr. Joanna Budwig built upon the work of Dr. Warburg and discovered how to feed the cells to overcome this oxygen deficiency. She found that it was the sulfur in the cottage cheese that would mix with fresh pressed flax oil, that the flax oil would become emulsified and more readily absorbed. Flax oil delivered in this manner was able to restore oxygen transfer to all cells of the body. Now there's a new method of pressing seed oils that produces the highest quality, zero oxidation, undamaged seed oils. The results on these seed oils alone are amazing. Now add our Life Force Enhanced One World Whey Protein Powder that is much higher in the sulfur amino acids than cottage cheese is, and you have a winning combination to confer health and energy like never before. Call 888-988-3325 or visit sacredseedoils.com. That's sacredseedoils.com.
Attention small business owners. Want to save money on your employee health insurance plan? Learn the little-known solution that could save thousands of dollars on your health insurance benefits and save your employees money, too. Call Health Markets for a free consultation, and one of our 3,000 local agents will show you how to make healthcare reform work for you. We'll design customized solutions for your business that can lower healthcare costs for you and your employees. We'll work directly with you to determine your needs. We search thousands of health plans from over 180 health insurance companies nationwide. You'll also find out if tax credits could save you money. Best of all, the service is free of charge. See why Health Markets has enrolled Americans in more than 2 million insurance policies. You don't have to wait for open enrollment to lower your cost. Call now. Find out how much you and your employees could be saving.
Representatives are standing by to assist you. Call 800-930-5137. That's 800-930-5137. 800-930-5137.
Have you ever thought you'd like to flip houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? Are you ready to be your own boss so you can start living the good life? Hi, I'm Preston Neely. I used to be so broke. I had my electricity turned off 9 times, but I figured out a way to quit my job and find financial freedom in real estate. For a limited time, I want to send you a free copy of my smash hit selling book, How to Get Rich in Real Estate. It shows you how to copy exactly what I did so you can make money from the comfort of your own home without even doing any manual labor. I've already given away 5,000 books and they're going fast. To get one before they're gone, call 1-800-958-9256. Listen, if you're sick and tired of stressing about money, this book could change your life. It's short, fun to read, easy to understand, and awesome. To find out how to get your free book while supplies last, call 1-800-958-9256. Call 1-800-958-9256. 1-800-958-9256.
Hi, this is Joshua P. Warren, author of The Poor Man's Paranormal, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, the subject is star people. So I suppose that is the issue you see, too, in talking to these people, that there's a reluctance to report what they see. Is it because of ridicule or what?
Well, I think, with the urban Indians, it was related more to fear of losing a job. Ridicule certainly plays a part in it because there's a lot of teasing that goes on in Native communities. And, I wrote about in my first book how the the lawmen that reported sighting a UFO, and they were referred to as the little green men hunters, or it's just something that, and they said that'll probably be on our gravestone. If I had to do it over again, I would have never made that report because I get teased all the time about it. So there's a lot of teasing in the Native community, and that's just a part of our culture. I think that for so many of the elders, it's more of a spiritual experience, or a part of the cosmology, a part of the sacredness of UFO experiences with the interaction between star people and humans. And and the ancestral linkage, that they are the people who has gone before, and that they've always known this, and they tell about it in their legends, but nobody has really given them that much credit.
Now, I get the impression from what you say, we're not just talking about experiences passed down from father to son to daughter, whatever. We're talking about people today who are still having these experiences, right?
Right, absolutely. I'm hoping that I can write a book that where I will tell, because when I first started on this journey, I was collecting the ancient stories about star people. And when I was with elders, I would often ask them, did they have any star stories, and if I could record them. And I said, maybe, someday I might put them all together, for I was thinking more along the lines of education for Native students. So I collected a lot of ancient stories, ancient legends that they consider a part of their history of their tribe. And what I would like to do is to tell those ancient stories as they were told to me, and then follow each and make that a chapter, and then within that chapter tell a contemporary story that has similar themes. For example, if I tell an ancient legend about a man that was taken to the stars by a woman, then I want to follow that up with a contemporary story along the same vein.
That's a good idea. Kind of do a side-by-side comparison. Right. I think that's a very good idea. I've always wondered, Ardy, what percentage of Native American traditional groups have, these ancient sort of, the Star People legends are an integral part of their spiritual tradition. Can you say that a vast majority of different Indian nations have this traditional type of knowledge, or do some not have it, and they maybe have something that's different from that? Is there any way to put a number on that?
Well, I don't have any way of putting a number on it, but it certainly isn't something that you find in every tribe. First of all, the legends, a legend to me is historical. It is an account of an event that happened. A myth to me, is something that occurred. It may be a story of a hero, but then it's, exaggerated, or it may be an explanation of why something exists. I do find in most tribes there are myths about the cosmos. For example, they'll tell how the Milky Way came to be, or how, Pleiades came to be, or, how there's just a lot of myths intended to explain the world. But then there are legends in some of the tribes, and I would say maybe 20% of the tribes have legends about interaction with star people. And so it's not common throughout all the tribal groups, but it certainly, you even see a lot of it in South America. I mean, there's more tribes in South America than there are in the United States, and yet, it's just amazing how many stories they have. Now, the same thing in Canada, you do run across stories in Canada and run across tribes who have stories, but for, on a recent trip to Alaska, I had an elder tell me these stories about the men with tails, and it's an ancient legend of the people that tells of a time when these giant men with tails lived, and they were cannibals, and they came from the stars, and the tribe was very fearful of them because they were killing their people. And so when they were asleep at night, the tribe took it upon themselves to kill them, and as a warning to any who would come after them that we are capable of defending ourselves. So, when you read that, and then you have somebody tell you a story about a lizard man with a tail scoots along the ground. I mean, you have to think, where is there truth in this? Did this actually happen? And is this, it's not a story. It's an actual account of something that happened. But for so long, our ancient legends were just regarded as folklore or fantasy or whatever, and disregarded as we progressed into the industrial age, because that was. See, I believe that all people used to have these same kind of interactions and same kind of stories, but people throw things aside.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the Northern Plains. More specifically, the Lakota's tradition of white buffalo calf woman. And that's an example of star knowledge that is pretty much, it boils down to a single event, a visit by a single individual that then spawned a whole system of spiritual knowledge within that particular subcultural group of natives. And do you find that most of the legendary stories are attributed to various encounters, or in the case of the Lakota, are some of them even distilled down to a single encounter that has then opened up a whole resulting sort of tradition of Star People knowledge?
Well, the White Buffalo calf woman is a story that tells of the woman who appears and who then teaches the Lakota the knowledge of how to live and how to live in a proper way. And then she goes away and disappears. According to the legend, there's really no indication that she came from the stars. But if you go to other cultures, there are stories of. I was told a story by a Canadian elder who told me about a woman that came from the stars, and she ruled this whole tribe of giants, and they lived on this island, and they were very happy, and she set the stage for how people were to live, and she gave them the knowledge, and then they started fighting among themselves. And so she separated the island and sent those who were discordant and causing trouble away, and they were all killed in a hurricane. And the others lived. I mean, it's just amazing how many stories there are out there about women who come from the stars and teach the people.
Let's talk more about this in our next segment about the Star People with Gene and Chris and Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
Are the answers to your present and future hidden in your past? Akashic readings help you learn to unlock the answers for love, finances, weight loss, self-esteem, confusion, grief and loss, and more. Akashic email readings by Dr. Kelly Maroon, PhD, are specially priced right now. Learn more at Dr. Kelly Maroon's website, akashicuniversal.com, spelled AKASHIC universal.com. Change your life today. Become one with your true path with intention on purpose. Visit akashicuniversal.com.
Worried about lead, fluoride, and other contaminants in your drinking water? Get a ProPure with the Pro 1G 2.0 cleanable reusable filter and remove up to 200 contaminants. Drink water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure products, including the new ProMax shower filter. There's a ProPure for you. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
Looking for that edge during those intimate moments? We see many ads for enhancement, but the side effects include death. At GCN Team, we should change the Healthy Body, Brain, and Heart Pack to the Healthy Libido Pack. The brain and heart are not the only organs that require a healthy vascular system. For proper blood flow at the right moment, go to GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London.
Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
How confident are you in your food storage? If it was all you had to rely on, would it sustain your family? Hard times, good times, or any time? Numana Storable Food is the proven superior choice. Learn for yourself what happened when one man ate only Numana Storable Food for an entire month. Online at powerprepper.com. That's powerprepper.com. Experience the Numana difference.
American made food stores I love to eat. Yum!
This is Robert Hastings, author of UFOs and Nukes, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Interesting here that so many of these legends talk about women, as we argue today about whether a woman can be a leader, a president, or etc. So in what has been a male-centric society in many parts of the world, how does this strike people?
What do you mean? How does it strike people?
The presence of women as leaders.
Well, I think in the Native community...
Yeah, most of them are matrilineal.
You have matriarchal societies.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the Lakota Sioux is they are a patriarchal society, and yet a woman brought them the knowledge. But if you go to other tribes who are matriarchal societies, you look at the Cherokee. I mean, Wilma Mankiller was a principal chief of the Cherokees in Oklahoma. Women have always held a much more important role in matriarchal society. So I think it's whichever group, all Indian tribes are not the same, and they're not organized in the same manner, and their traditions and histories are very different.
Now, looking at these traditions, we see them among Native Americans. What about around the world? Any other civilizations have recollections of
Certainly
meeting?
the Maya do.
Okay.
The Maya do, and like I said, throughout South America, I've met tribes that have very strong, to even tell stories of warriors who came from the sky and in these metal contraptions and did all sorts of things on the land. Very vivid descriptions of these individuals and who carried weapons that shot light and beams. Their stories of individuals, the men with lightning eyes, men who were able to shoot fire from their eyes at a target and destroy it. I could just go on and on about the different kinds of stories that I've collected.
Now, this is such an unfortunate thing here because a lot of people have no such thing as any tradition. Stories being passed down across generations. Certainly, I think of myself, for example. My parents came from East Europe. The only memory I have of these families is my grandparents. My grandparents barely spoke English, never conveyed to me anything about their families, their histories, what led them to come from Russia or Austria to America at the turn of the 20th century. And all that is gone. It's missing. We don't know. I have no idea about anything involving my family before the early 20th century.
Well, don't you think there's I always look at that and have thought about that. And one of the conclusions that I've drawn from that is, your grandparents came here to become Americans. They left everything behind that had made them flee. Eastern Europe. But American Indians didn't come here to be Americans. They were Americans. They were the first Americans. And as a result, they've been able to hold on to all of those stories that make them unique on this planet. Where your grandparents came here to change all that. They wanted to become Americans. And I think when you do that, when you flee one place, and not so much today of the new immigrants, because there seems to be an awful lot of the new immigrants who are building their own little conclaves in cities, and, you know, like you'll find an Iranian section, you'll find an Indian section, you'll find, you know, and I'm talking about Indian. But they group themselves together, they keep their languages, they keep their religious practices, whereas the early immigrants to this country didn't do that because they were coming from parts of the world where they wanted to better their lives. So they didn't want to bring that old way with them. They wanted a new way.
So they, therefore, were happy to forget what happened before because it is something that is pretty miserable for them.
As a historian, I try to figure out, why did this happen? You know, why is it that all of those stories, and you know they had to have all kinds of stories. You know, my husband is part Polish. In fact, he was born in Poland, and he often talks about the stories his grandparents taught him. But I think part of it is because, you know, he's married to me, and he figures that because I value those old stories and those traditions so much that you know, he often spontaneously shares something, you know, from that he learned from his grandparents who, you know, lived the old ways, you know, out in the country in Poland and survived World War II, you know.
Well, the difference, of course, is also that when I was young, our families all lived each other's lives. So, for example, my mother's parents owned a 4-family house, 3 units of which were occupied by her son, and one of her daughters. So the family just stayed together, even though they led separate lives. Less so on my father's side, and part of the reason is that his mother died when he was 19, at which point his father said to him and his brother, "You're old enough to work, get out of here." Literally. They were sent off to find their futures for themselves. So obviously there was no talking there. There was no opportunity to talk to my father's father, my grandfather. And when I actually did meet him, he was very ill, mostly bedridden, and hardly in a position to tell me about his life and what led him to America. With the problem with my mother's parents is that, again, the language difficulty, and I was very young. So in many ways, I'd be incurious about them. I knew a few things, but not very much. And at the point in time where I might have become curious, long after they're gone. So their histories are basically history. Now, in saying that, some of my cousins have made an effort to kind of put together a family history. So I have photos of my grandfather, my father's father, in the 1920s, and his mother. And you could look at that and see, gee, he looks kind of like my father and maybe somewhat resembles me. But that's all I know.
Well, and I think that's common, you know, throughout the backgrounds of the immigrants that came to America up until perhaps the 1960s, that people were coming here to start a new life, and therefore the old ways were set aside, so to speak. And even their children, you know, reinforced that. They'd say, "Oh, Mom and Dad, you're just old-fashioned. You know, you got to be Americans." But now, you know, it's, you know, where Indians are concerned, passing on those stories are very important because they consider it their history, and passing on the legends. And you find in tribes that have lost so much of their language, you know, a real determination to keep those stories and to keep their language alive. And they're doing all sorts of things, both in the school and in the home, to maintain and restore so that future generations will know that, we look at it as it's who we are. Our stories tell about who we are. They tell where we've been and where we will go. And so it's that part of our history is really important.
Well, I'm seeing, somewhat of a tendency of people to want to do that. We have like a site called Ancestry.com where you can look up your family history.
There's a real renewal,
Sure.
of people wanting to do that.
And then there's another product or service that you can get from many places where you get DNA tests. Mm-hmm. And it's not to see who your father was or something like that, although those are available. It is to find your genetic information to see where you fit. Look at your background. They actually have commercials. I was
quite surprised.
Oh, yeah, you did. Tell us briefly about that in our next segment, because this is fascinating. And we'll get back to searching for star people. And that is, we want to first tell you, though, that we have a second radio show called After the Paracast, part of the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. Take advantage of a special rate for subscribers and free ebooks for long-term subscriptions. So we got a lot more to talk about with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. Once again, the book is from Anomalous Books, and it's called More Encounters with Star People. Urban American Indians Tell Their Stories. And fascinating stories they appear to be. And of course, as we progress through this session, we'll have questions that our listeners asked in the Paracast forums at forum.theparacast.com. You're on with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Are you retired or facing retirement and you're afraid your income is going to be less than you'd like? I'm Pharmacist Keith. Dr. Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy, and I want to show you a low-cost way to create your own business working around your current schedule, creating extra income that will last for years to come by joining Dr. Wallach's crusade, spreading his message of better health. To learn more, visit radio.recordedvideo.com. That's radio.recordedvideo.com, radio.recordedvideo.com, or call 866-257-3105 for a recorded message.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So, as I was talking in the previous segment about the fact that more and more people want to learn about their family histories, not so far as oral traditions as to whether certain events happen to their families or encounters with unusual beings, but just to know who their ancestors were. And we have those genetic tests that determine your makeup. Chris, you had that done to you at one time.
I did, because I was adopted at age 5, along with one of my brothers, one of 4 of us. I've always been very intrigued about my genetic background, because I really didn't have that much knowledge about, my family on my biological parents' side. So, now with the advent of affordable DNA testing, I went ahead and did the swab on the inside of the cheek, the saliva test, and sent it off to Ancestry.com. And I had been told by my half-brother, who I was reunited with after many years, that my father had managed, when he got out of prison, had managed to establish that he was 1/4 Cherokee. And as a result of that, my half-sister was able to go to Stanford University and have her education paid for. So I've always, since I found out this information in 2001, I've been very intrigued about the possibility of having Native American ancestry in my genetic makeup. So I went ahead and did the test. And when it came back, I was absolutely amazed. Number one, I had absolutely no Native American in me. And number two, it turns out that I'm more British than the majority of Brits.
What?
I'm 70% English with 17% Iberian, which I guess would be the Spanish or Portuguese or Basque, 1% Finnish, 1% Russian, Eastern European, 1% Tanzanian, and 1% Mali. I guess that goes way back to...
Your father must not have been your father if he said he had proved that he was 1/4 Cherokee.
Well, he was also a pretty...
I mean, you would have had to inherit some of that if he truly were your father, right?
You would think so, but he also probably had a good line of gab. Was able to fast talk his way into getting his, getting his card, so to speak. As it turns out,
to me that your sister would be able to go to college, because that would mean she would only be 1/8, and I bet I know a lot of Native Americans would like to know how you do that, because you're not eligible for college assistance, not a full ride, but even college assistance unless you're a quarter.
Well, he must have pulled the fast one somehow. I really don't know all the details of how he managed to do that, but to find out that most Brits are only, most of them are less than 50% British, and to find out that I was, had significantly more, I guess, genetic background, English background than most, native Britons. Was quite an eye opener for me. But one thing that I do find very interesting with the progress of science and technology is we're more and more able to establish migration patterns when specific peoples arrived in specific locations, what sort of genetic makeup went into, what we now know as, let's say, a Native American tribe. For instance, the Zuni Indians, based on what I know, have a connection with the Ainu, who are the Aboriginal people of Japan. The Mayans have Polynesian in them and appear to have come by way of the ocean from the west. Or not the Maya, the Hopi, rather. So I think as we progress in time and technology becomes more and more affordable and accessible to people, I think we're going to establish some very interesting, patterns, like I said, of migration and how the melting pot has eventuated into what we now know as specific identity groups here in North America, and I'm sure in South America as well.
Chris, just a fast question to throw in here. All right, so you're saying that most British people are less than 50% British.
Mm-hmm.
What's the rest? Is there a tendency to be one thing or another? I gather possibly the Queen, the royal family, there's a lot of German in there, isn't there?
Yes, and also because of the waves of of Scandinavians that came from the north, the Vikings, and also the influx of Spanish blood from, let's say, the sinking of the Spanish Armada. Your Black Irish, for instance, a lot of their genealogy, in some sense, could be traced back to the Iberian Peninsula, which is quite common. So basically, what you're seeing with genetic information is waves of migration that then genetically impact a particular area and a particular people. And to me, it's very fascinating. For instance, the Scottish people have a legend of Queen Scotia, who many believe was a daughter of Akhenaten, an Egyptian. So I'm fascinated by this type of scientific work, and I think it's quite revealing, again, how migrations of people end up influencing the genetic makeup of what we would consider indigenous people.
Now, 23andme.com and Ancestry.com, they offer a service like this for $99. If you look online, you might get for less. I have no idea about the quality of the services. I mean, if someone wants to buy me a genetic test, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'm 88% ET or something. And that's an interesting question that kind of hits me here as we talk about genetic
that would
makeup
explain
of people.
a lot.
Well, there's definitely something weird going on there, and I'd love to know what it is. But, Ardy, are there legends of interbreeding with star people and Earth people?
Well, I think there's some indication that has happened. You know, one of the stories in my book is a story that talks about an elder who told me, he said, this place was once their home. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, I've been told by the star travelers that they once lived on Earth. And no indication of why they left or anything. But, you know, one of the things that goes through my mind when I hear that, what if at one time there was a great civilization that lived on Earth, and they were human beings, and they literally destroyed the Earth and went to another place, to another planet to live, like we are trying right now to go to Mars and develop a 1,000-person colony up there. You know, you stop and think about some of these stories that you've been told. In my book is also a story of a 90-year-old elder who told me that she had been abducted since she was a child, and she got so fed up with it that at one point she demanded to know why they were taking her, and they told her, your DNA is close to ours. So when you start talking about DNA, I mean, this was in 1974, and I was visiting with her in her kitchen, and she got up and she went over to a drawer and she pulled out this notebook, and in the notebook was an account of all the years in her life since she had been keeping it in the I don't know, the late 50s or early 60s, and she'd write the year, and then she would write events that had gone on, and in this one, on the page that said 1974, there were small letters, DNA, and a word MAULEQULES for molecules. She said they explained it to her, but she didn't know anything about it. Well, if I'd been living, you and I wouldn't have known anything about it in 1974 either, because the expression or the term DNA was not a popular term. But she had heard that and had kept a record of that her DNA was so similar to the star people that's why they kept coming back and taking her.
We've got Ardy Sixkiller Clarke joining us. A lot more to talk about. And Chris has a question to open up the next segment with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
The award-winning graphic converter, the universal genius for photo editing on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for this Swiss Army knife photo editing app. It gives you all you expect from a top-flight image editing app with tons of features, and most important, it's easy to use. Get 20% off from lemkesoft.de/Gene. That's lemkesoft.de/Gene. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Back to the music in a minute, but first I've got a special free giveaway. I've got 100 free trials of the belly-flattening breakthrough new biotics here, and I've been authorized to give them away to the station's first 100 callers right now. So if you want to see what you'd look like with a flatter belly, call now. Don't even wait till I stop talking. Only one free trial per caller, though. Don't be greedy. Okay, here's the number. 1-800-983-5628. I'm guessing it works pretty fast because it says here that if your belly flattening results are too dramatic, you're supposed to reduce use to every other day. And it looks like it's made from natural ingredients too, scientifically formulated to cleanse pounds of toxic sludge from your body. Okay, this is it. If you want a flatter belly, be one of the first 100 callers right now to claim one of these free trials. 1-800-983-5628. If lines are busy, try again. 1-800-983-5628. Call now for details. 1-800-983-5628.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states.
Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937. Dangerous blood clot device alert. If you or a loved one had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to your heart or lungs and suffered an injury, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, and even death. These dangerous blood clot devices can break, and the metal fragments can travel to your heart or lungs, causing serious injuries. If you or a loved one suffered organ damage or other injuries from an IVC filter, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. InjuryHelpDesk.com is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada.
This is Rick Ossick, president of Famous Footwear. Our company is working together with the March of Dimes through March for Babies to raise money and awareness about the serious problem of premature birth in the U.S. As a business leader, I know that babies born very sick or too soon cost businesses billions of dollars each year, in addition to the emotional stress on employees and their families. That's why Famous Footwear is committed to raising funds to improve the health of moms and babies everywhere. Won't you please join us in the March for Babies? Start a team today at marchforbabies.org.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
The book from Ardy Sixkiller Clarke from Anomalist Books is More Encounters with Star People. Urban American Indians Tell Their Stories. The book hasn't been out long, but she's received a number of very, very favorable reviews from readers. And I think the worst review, and you got to be congratulated there because this doesn't happen very often, the worst review is 4 stars, not 5.
Wow, that's excellent. Well, Ardy, we have questions that are posted by our listeners at the question bank, where forum posters can ask questions of our guests. And this is a good question from Ronaway. And he's wondering, I'll just read his question verbatim and then do a little follow-up here. But do the groups know why they were singled out by the visitors? And are any still visited? Thanks. And what I'd like to kind of add on top of that is, what percentage of, if you could put a number on it just roughly, what percentage of stories and legends have a very specific rationale for why they're being singled out by the Star People? And do you think that Native Americans have more of a chance of having these experiences than your average Anglo.
Well, I think that Native Americans not necessarily have more experiences, but I think anybody who lives in rural or isolated areas are more likely to have those experiences. And if you look at reservations, the majority of them, at least in the western part of the United States, are in very isolated areas. I think in the tribal groups that speak about star people and have many legends about star people, there have been interactions going on between them for centuries, since the beginning of time. And I'm trying to remember what Ron's question was.
Well, he's wondering, why are they singled out? What particular rationale?
I don't know that they were singled out. You know, it may be that they are the ancestors. They were the ancestors because many of the tribes will describe them as the ancestors, the people who went before. I don't think they were necessarily singled out. It just happened to be that they were the group. You know, there's an ancient story that's told by the Cherokee about the young hunters that went out looking, hunting for deer, and came upon this silver circular craft in a meadow and saw these little men. And then they went back to their elders and they said, "What should we do?" And so the elders and leaders of the tribe went out and greeted them. And these star people told them that, well, we're here to rest and to study, and so it was agreed that they would the Cherokee would teach them things, and they would teach the Cherokee things. And they lived there among them until their work was finished and they decided to go home. And the story is that they told the Cherokee people that we will always watch out for you. So over and over I've heard Cherokee people tell me, hey, when I had this encounter, I was told as a child that, the star people would always look out for me, so I wasn't afraid, because those stories were passed on that you can expect to see them. And when you do see them, don't be afraid. Don't worry, because they're here to look out for you.
What Native American groups that you've become in contact with and collected stories, which groups have the richest tradition of that? In other words, this particular dynamic is really important versus just people having experiences and having it be more of a peripheral thing. Which cultures are most reliant on this particular body of evidence in their culture?
Well, I think the Cherokees have some of the strongest stories. And of course, as you mentioned, the Lakota Sioux, the Chippewa Cree certainly do. There's just a number of different tribal groups. Some of them maybe only have one or two stories. Others can have a dozen stories. So it just depends on. But I think of the southeastern Indians, probably the Cherokee have the most stories.
How about the Pueblo people and the whole idea of the Kachina as a representation of star people, the various star people groups?
Well, they're more closed about their stories, but obviously the Kachina is supposedly a star being, and I think that you find the same in the Dene, the Navajo. So when the Kachina dances in the plaza, and the blue star is seen in the sky, it's the warning that their Messiah is returning.
Just a fast question here. The similarity of these legends. Are we thinking then at the time towards the dawn of recorded history that all these tribes really started from one source? It was just one tribe that split up over the years?
I don't think so. I mean, all you have to do is look at the different tribes, and you can see different physical differences. You see different traditions, different beliefs, different history, and they will tell you
physical attributes.
I understand that.
But you look at here in Montana, alone, you have certain tribes that are very tall, and others that aren't so tall at all, but the Lakota, the Blackfeet, and the Crow are very tall people.
But they're all talking, a lot of them are talking about star people. Do we assume it's all the same race that interacted with all these tribes, or
but their stories are very different.
Okay.
They're not the same.
Key differences, let's focus on this more, because I think our listeners would like to hear more specific events. What are the major differences from tribe to tribe in the recollections of the encounters with star people?
Well, with some tribes, there's more shape-shifting individuals who come to the earth and they transform themselves into other shapes. That would be one. With some tribes, there's more stories about interaction with women. I'm not really prepared to discuss this, so I'm trying to think on my feet here. What would be some of the differences?
It's no problem. We're just trying to focus on a lot of different areas.
Right. Yeah. There certainly are, different stories, and as you will, hopefully, if I get my next book done, that you'll definitely see that, because I'm trying to tell a wide variety of the ancient legends.
The book is called More Encounters with Star People. Urban American Indians Tell Their Stories. And our guest this week is the author, Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. And one more thing. Don't forget to check out the Paracast Plus for our exclusive podcast after the Paracast. It's only available if you subscribe to the Paracast Plus. You also get the commercial-free version of this show and lots of other benefits, videos, show transcripts, book excerpts, lots more coming. Go to plus.theparacast.com. Once again, that's plus.theparacast.com. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Are the answers to your present and future hidden in your past? Akashic readings help you learn to unlock the answers for love, finances, weight loss, self-esteem, confusion, grief and loss, and more. Akashic email readings by Dr. Kelly Maroon, PhD, are specially priced right now. Learn more at Dr. Kelly Maroon's website, akashicuniversal.com, spelled AKASHIC universal.com. Change your life today. Become one with your true path with intention on purpose. Visit akashicuniversal.com.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
Will the government protect your family from Iran and North Korea's newest weapon, EMP? We buy guns to protect ourselves, home, health, and car insurance for accidents. Maybe you also have food storage. But how would you keep your refrigerator running in a long-term EMP blackout? Using tested military designs, the Solark EMP-hardened solar generator protects and powers your critical appliances for years without burying items underground or wrapping them in aluminum foil. Unlike other preps, Solark is used every day to help offset your electric bill automatically. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to learn how easily expandable the system is. Solark is the most affordable and powerful solution on the market. The whole system even fits in the back of a pickup or SUV and can install in less than an hour. See for yourself why Solark beats other off-grid systems at PortableSolarLLC.com. Don't wait for the government. Go to PortableSolarLLC.com to learn why Solark is energy insurance for your family.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare? Having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Hi, this is James Fox from Chasing UFOs. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Okay, so coming as someone who hasn't been exposed to this tradition so much, what do you think would be a good story to acquaint them with, to give them an idea of what's been going on over the centuries?
You mean an ancient story?
Sure. Some early story. I won't say it's a typical story because there probably aren't typical stories, but something that represents a lasting effect on people.
Okay, well, this story I've heard from many different travel groups. The story is always a little bit different, but it has similar themes. Okay, so I'll tell you this story as that was told to me by an elder. This story talks about the legend of Cloudcatcher. Cloudcatcher was a young man growing up, and it was time for him to have his coming-of-age kind of ceremony that they have, and he refused to participate. And his parents were so angry with him that they threw him out of their home. And so Cloudcatcher goes out into the night, and he's sitting by the river, and he lays down in the grass and he falls asleep. And suddenly he woke up when a strange, bright light beamed down from the sky. And as he looked at it in amazement, a beautiful woman walked out of the light. And she says, "Cloudcatcher, I've come for you." And as she turned away, he felt duty-bound to follow her. But instead of walking, she began to fly upward. And suddenly Cloudcatcher realizes that once inside the light, he could also fly. So he ascended to the sky beside her, and when he looked down below, he could see the dim light of Earth while the stars lit up the sky. When he finally came to, he was in a land of crystal lakes and immense lodges, and he woke up on a couch of rich furs with the couch's arms cut from jasper and tipped with silver, and he was amazed at this world that he was in, because it was so unfamiliar to him. And while he was gazing around him, the brother of the young godwoman who had taken him walked into the room and saw him. And he described the brother as being tall and so dazzling in gold and silver ornaments that he could hardly look at him. But when the brother saw Cloudcatcher, he was angry. He told his sister, "You have to send him back to Earth. He cannot stay here among us. We don't want him here." So she told her, "No, Cloudcatcher is going to be my husband." And despite her brother's worries, within days they were married, and the two of them, so much in love, thought they would live happily ever after. But as the time passed, the sight of Earth made Cloudcatcher very lonely and longing for his people. So he told his wife, "I want to go home." And she said, "But we have children." And he said, "I know, but I want to go home. I miss my family too much." So she said, well, you can go, but if you're more pleased with the hardships of Earth, you can go. But I'm warning you, do not take an Earth woman for your wife. And so he goes back to Earth, and the next morning he wakes up the door of his father's house. His relatives gather around and welcome him, and he learned that he had been in the sky for many years. And after a time, despite the warnings of his scout wife, Cloudcatcher took an Earth wife. And in 4 days, she was dead. Well, he unheeded that lesson and married again, and this time his wife passed within a week.
Not very nice
As
people.
The story goes, shortly thereafter, Cloudcatcher stepped from his lodge one evening and never came back. And the people said that on that night, the woods were filled with strange lights, and the villagers believed that Cloudcatcher's sky wife had come for him, and that he lived out his life among the star people.
Where are the star people from?
Well, they're from a lot of different places, as I understand. I wish I could give you that answer.
Well, you say lots of different places. What do the legends say?
Well, most of them don't even say anything, about the location. The ancient legends and even the contemporary stories that people tell me, they rarely, Pleiades is sometimes mentioned, Sirius is sometimes mentioned, but, it's not a common thing where people seem to even be aware of where they are.
Thing that I've noticed in my research, and I've done quite a bit of research in this area, and have a very, very close friend who is a Zuni elder who has opened up and told me some stuff that I think normally someone like me wouldn't be told. But one thing that I've noticed is I have not encountered any stories, any traditions that talk about planets as being homes for these beings. It's always referred to as further out in the stars, as opposed to something closer, let's say Venus or one of the visible planets. Have you noticed that as well?
Absolutely. They'll say, well, where was it? They'll say far from home. So, yeah.
Chris?
Well, that was just a kind of a comment or an observation that I had. You would think that the visible planets would generate some stories or legends or have some sort of traditional knowledge attached to them, like the Greeks and the Romans and that sort of thing, more traditional myths from the Western world. But I find it very curious and intriguing that, at least to my limited knowledge, which granted is more than most people's, but not as much as someone like Ardy, I have not encountered a single story that would relate any of these beings to any of the visible planets, and I find that very very intriguing. You want to give us some examples of some urban encounters that we've had in more recent times, and how they possibly have indications of similarities with some of the older legends and stories, or let's say are dissimilar?
Well, I have a story that I was recently told by a young man that I was invited to a big family gathering, reunion, I suppose you would call it, and I met this man. He was middle-aged, and who told me that when he was in college, that over a break that they had in school, that it was too short to go home and too long to stay in the dorms. So he decided that he was going to take a trip to the Seattle Space Needle. And he said they had gone there when he was in high school, and he wanted to eat lunch in the Space Needle because when he was a kid he didn't have the money to do that. So he set off and was literally abducted. He told me about having sex with a female entity, and that over the next several years he had repeated abductions until he actually fathered 6 children. And he said that today he still goes to that planet, I guess you would call it. He knows his children. His children are highly regarded because they are the product of an Earth father and a star woman, and they have a high place in the hierarchy of the class system on that planet. And they are unique in that they can not only speak verbally, but they can communicate telepathically. He says that when he encountered these beings for the first time, it was a woman that came to him and who took him on board the craft. So there is that similarity there, the fact that he fathered several children. The fact, I asked him, well, why don't you stay there if that's, He says the reason he cooperates is that he has been told, again, that his DNA was very similar to theirs.
Let's continue with that. In our next segment with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke and Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails t-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast jumbo tote bag, all sorts of t-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great t-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
How confident are you in your food storage? If it was all you had to rely on, would it sustain your family? Hard times, good times, or any time, New Manna Storable Food is the proven superior choice. Learn for yourself what happened when one man ate only New Manna Storable Food for an entire month. Online at powerprepper.com. That's powerprepper.com. Experience the New Manna difference.
American made food stores I love to eat. Yum!
In these uncertain times, it makes sense to have a sustainable backup method to cook food and boil water. If your current plan includes using a fuel-burning stove or cooking over an open fire, then there's a much better way. The Minuteman Rocket Stove is a biomass-burning cooking stove that only requires small quantities of sticks and twigs for fuel. The Minuteman Stove is easy to use, smokeless, portable, powerful, and sustainable. For the finest in survival cooking stoves and fire starters made right here in the USA, go to MinutemanStove.com. That's MinutemanStove.com.
You've seen crazy diets to lose weight. At GCN Team, our healthy body weight loss system simply neutralifies the body, bringing down cravings. It has been proven that nutritional deficiencies drive appetite for carbs, sugars, and fats. Lose weight the easy way. Find us at GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Fighting cravings is a fool's game. Give the body what it needs to be satisfied. Again, 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and like all of you out there, I had problems sleeping. Pillows would go flat, I would flip-flop all night long, I would wake up with a sore neck, maybe a headache, or feel like I needed a nap even though I slept 8 hours. When I invented MyPillow, I wanted it to where you could move the patented fill to give you the exact support you need as an individual, regardless of sleep position. MyPillow will get you into that deep REM sleep faster, and you will stay there longer. It's not about how much time we spend in bed, it's about how much of that quality sleep we get. I do do all of my own manufacturing right here in the United States. I have a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry my pillow, and I give you a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. And here's my best offer ever. You can buy one of my pillows and get one absolutely free.
Go to mypillow.com or call 800-870-0305 and use promo code GCN. That's mypillow.com or 800-870-0305 with promo code GCN.
There is an affordable alternative to the high cost of healthcare that offers freedom from insurance while providing compliance with the Obamacare individual mandate. Imagine having access to quality, affordable healthcare that allows you the freedom to choose your doctor and hospital. Members can share up to 100% of necessary medical expenses, including some alternative treatments. Find out how you and your family can contain healthcare costs without giving up your freedom. Go to libertyoncall.org. That's libertyoncall.org.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
With Gene and Chris, we have Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, and she was talking about an interesting case there in our previous segment, and I had to interrupt you towards the end because the network clock is the network clock. Have any more to say before we move on?
No, not really. What I was illustrating was, here is an ancient legend that talks of a woman being taken to the stars where the man fathers several children, decides he wants to come back to Earth, returns to Earth, and then finally goes back and lives with his wife in the stars. And the same thing with the contemporary story, except that the man doesn't live there. He just goes there on occasion, because he has. I asked him, do you have the same kind of relationship with your children there as you would have on Earth? And he says, no, not at all. It's when I go there, he said that the society is quite rigid in their rules because they have a place where they put all of us who are abductees and who have fathered or parented, because he said there were a couple women he had seen. They put them in this place to sleep. And then wherever they go, they have someone accompanying them. They're not allowed to talk to the other abductees, so he has no idea who they are or where they come from. But his situation, he said, is very unique. He owned several businesses in Seattle and was able to come and go as he pleased, so that he had people who worked for him. He was a very successful businessman. And so when he disappeared, no one would really think anything about it. So he said, often he went for weeks at a time. And
wow. One thing I've noticed is there seems to be a higher percentage of stories and accounts that involve procreation, sexual relations, and more intimate type relationships with star beings, as opposed to your more conventional kind of Anglo versions, which seem to be a little bit more at arm's length, a little bit more separation. There seems to be more of a doctor patient or scientist and study group, as opposed to more intimate type of apparent relationships. Have you noticed this as well?
Well, I haven't, because, my first book, I think I only had a couple of stories. I think in my next book, I think there was one story. And in this book, in my new book, there, again, only a couple of stories. I think that it's probably similar to mainstream ufology, but populations. But I think that what I was fascinated by, and I have a number of stories that probably I will never publish enough books to tell all these stories, but a number of stories where males were abducted, and that's not common. In there are a lot of stories about women being abducted and the implantation of a sperm or some sort of thing that creates a child, and then the child is taken, or women being taken on board crafts where they're told, this is your baby. But And that happens throughout the population. But there are very few stories of men who are taken and are told they are fathers. And that's what I find most interesting is the men who have come forward to me and told me. Now, I don't have a whole lot, but I do have some.
Well, I wonder here, just listening to what you said about so-called abductees being taken among the star people, they sound like they're slaves or they're captured and they're not allowed to talk to other people. They're not allowed to have the freedom. And that, to me, is telling me they're not very nice.
Well, and I asked him that. I said, why don't you just live there? And he says, because I value democracy. I value my freedom. And when you live there, you have no freedom, really. He said there are two classes of people. There's the upper class and the lower class. But because the upper class takes care of every need of the lower class, they don't rebel. And I found that kind of interesting because it looks like we're moving to that kind of a society where the upper class, provides that kind of service, to the less fortunate, and moving away from, when you got 50% of the population not working but are being taken care of, and it makes you think about a society like that he was talking about. I don't know. He preferred his freedom to living in an environment like that. And I asked him, well, do you think your children would ever come here? And he said, my children would never want to leave here because they would not have the same station as they have there. They would not have the same position.
Doesn't sound like a very nice place.
No, it doesn't to me either.
But you're relating this, of course, to reports of UFO abductions around the world where we have similar things happening, interacting with other beings of different descriptions, possible genetic manipulation, or the creation of hybrids, or as one particular researcher calls them, hybrids, human hybrids. So are we just hearing different versions of the same stories?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The general sense of UFO abductions and the interactions with supposed extraterrestrials. Some aspects of that are sounding the same as some of the reports that you give us.
Well, I don't know if they're similar. I don't read a lot of those accounts or listen to TV that much. But I think if that's the truth, if that is the case, then I think that would lend credibility to these stories. If other people are experiencing similar things, then it's happening to more than one person. And it's not just one person telling the story.
Yeah, and there is both Gene and I are fairly well read in terms of your more well-known and contemporary accounts. You mentioned males being taken for purposes of procreation and some sort of sexual angle. Of course, the very famous case from South America, the Villa-Boas case.
Right.
Yeah, that would be one of the exceptional exceptions to the maybe the ratio of men to women that report these types of cases, and that is a bit standalone. Some of the details of that account are almost humorous. It's kind of a strange sort of sick sort of way. But I have another question here. This one comes from a longtime poster named Wade, who's been posting at forum.theparacast.com since 2011. And he's asking me to put this as best I can. But what I'll do is I'll presage the question with an observation made by an abduction researcher named Daryl Sims, who has interviewed hundreds and hundreds of abductees over the past 30 plus years. And what he determined was that if you have Cherokee and Celtic lineage, that you are more likely than any other genetic type to be abducted, let's say, for lack of a better term, or visited or taken away. He said that there's a higher percentage of people with Cherokee, a combination of Cherokee and Irish or Celtic blood. That tends to be a larger demographic type in the numbers. And Wade is wondering if you've looked into a possible connection with people of Celtic origins and why they, along with Native Americans, or as I mentioned, Cherokees in that sense, may be singled out or targeted. Do we have any indication through your work that that there could be some sort of correlation there?
Well, I haven't heard of that research before. I find it very interesting. I have not found among the Cherokees who have participated in my research, and more Cherokees telling me stories than I have other tribal groups. So I didn't know that was the case, and I'd be very interested. And if he would send me that information at Ardy@Sixkiller.com, I sure would love to hear from him, because that's something that I would like to perhaps pursue and look into.
We've got more to come with Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. Along with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors, classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Slingbow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug-out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of slingbow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, Gene and Chris, Encounters with Star People.
What I'll do, Ardy, is I'll shoot you Daryl's contact information. I think his website is alienhunter.com.
Okay.
He did release, I think, an article that talks about the demographic information that kind of leapt out of the survey information that he's been collecting. And I happened to be at a conference when he debuted this particular fact, and I was very, very intrigued by that. I'm not quite sure what to make of it, but it would be interesting if that bears out.
I haven't heard this before, but I sure would be interested in following up on it.
Yeah, there's another group with Dr. Tyler Kochjon, who are also doing very extensive surveys with abductees. And I think one of the preliminary findings that they determined was the same, that if you have a mixture of Cherokee and Celtic blood or genetic background, that there seems to be a higher ratio of people that have been abducted with that combination. And that would be interesting to...
It's very interesting. I would like to follow up on that, and also, it would be important to me to know, obviously these people are not full bloods, because if they're a combination, I know there are not a whole lot of Cherokees who are full blood today. I don't know the percentage, but
not many.
It would be interesting. It's interesting research. If you can send me any information that can let me follow up on that, I sure would appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, not a problem, and we'll do that after we're done taping here. I'm wondering about, I've always been interested in other indigenous peoples around the world and their traditions of star people. I'm wondering in the work that you've done, and I know that you have visited the Maya and other tribal groups in the Americas. What other correlations do we see cross-culturally between these stories and legends, and what other differences? What sort of anomalies stick out? Let's say that might differentiate between one regional group versus, let's say North versus South American traditions.
Well, actually, they're very similar in that there are some accounts in South America of specific individuals that came and had a tremendous impact upon their lives and what they became. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that perhaps I could give you to answer that question, but.
Nothing really jumps out at you right now?
Nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another line of research that I've always been intrigued with. Of course, Dr. Jacques Vallée wrote probably his seminal work from 1969 as Passport to Magonia. And this is where he looks at the tradition of little people and of elemental beings and their possible relationship to what we now refer to as aliens, or the Native Americans would refer to as star people. Do we see any correlations between the real rich tradition of little people lore that we find in Native American cultural knowledge, and do we see any correlations that you might be able to look at that are also similar to star being stories?
Well, if you several tribes, American Indian tribes, have stories of little people, and of course, the Maya have stories of little people. In fact, if you go to the ancient city of Uxmal, there is a legend there that speaks of the Great Pyramid there, the Great Temple.
Yeah, the Temple of the Magician.
Right. It was built by a small, man. And when I visited with the elders there, they say that the way he was able to do that is because flying ships brought in, helped him do that. There were flying ships that came in and helped him. So, that's, the Makuzi Indians of the Amazon in northern Brazil, they talk about the hollow earth, and they say that their oral traditions tell of a time when they were entrusted with the secret knowledge of the underground realm of the inner earth, and that they were allowed to visit this hidden land and interact with the giants who resided there. And there are many stories. in both South and North America about giants, that lived upon the land when tribal groups, some lived peacefully, others did not. The Cherokee have a story of the blue people who lived underground, who came out and they grew crops, but they lived underground, and then they would come out and they would harvest their crops at night because their eyes were such that they could not live in the sun. The Makuzis, on the other hand, were given the task to look after the hollow earth so nobody could enter this mysterious cavern, And they talked about in their legends how you would travel for 3 days and you would descend these giant stairways. And then on the third day, they wouldn't need torches or anything because when they would arrive on the third day, it was illuminated by lights that were already in the cave, and there were giant lanterns the size of watermelons that were there. It was. And then they talked about if you travel 4 or 5 more days, that you would end up in an area where you were weightless.
Wow.
So there were all kinds of stories that I came across, in that part of the world. The last of the Makuzis say that until the year 1907, they would enter the caverns and would walk for 13 or 15 days in order to arrive at this cavern world. And there, below the surface of the earth, or inside the surface of the earth, lived these giants. And that they were very tall, they were good people, and they respected the Makuzis. But according to them, no one has been there since the early 1900s. And the Makuzis are actually the guardians of the underworld. They protect the entrance to the underworld.
And this is northern Brazil, you said?
Yes, this is in Brazil.
Well, interesting. I wrote a book which looked at the the cultural archetype of the trickster and how it manifests in various indigenous cultures around the world and Western cultures as well. And when I started doing a chapter on elementals, I thought, I'd be talking mostly about the Celtic countries and leprechauns and fairies and brownies. But
not.
Well, I was amazed and had no idea that most, if not all,
Hawaii, and they have the mini hune.
Well, I was going to say that every regional group of Native Americans have traditions of underground dwelling beings or small elementals who, in kind of a general version, they're there when the natives maybe migrate to a particular part of the country, and they have to drive them out. But I was amazed of tribe after tribe after tribe have accounts of small diminutive beings, giants in some cases, who are said to live underground. They invariably end up coming to, hostile sort of relations with these beings and end up driving them out so that they can settle their land. It's not only the Cherokee, it's the Indians of the Northwest, all up and down the Rocky Mountains.
There's the Paiute over, in Nevada, they tell the story of the red-haired cannibalistic giants. You find the same thing down in Georgia.
With Gene, Chris, and Ardy, you're in
the Paracast.
The award-winning graphic converter, the universal genius for photo editing on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for this Swiss Army knife photo editing app. It gives you all you expect from a top-flight image editing app with tons of features, and most important, it's easy to use. Get 20% off from lemkesoft.de/Gene. That's lemkesoft.de/Gene. As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
Hi, this is Dr. Joel Wallach, the Mineral Doctor. You've heard me talk about 90 for Life for years. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 fatty acids. You may not know this, that I've actually designed Arthur decks for animals. That's right. Your pets need 90 for Life too. Get this essential pet product by calling 877-279-9422. That's 877-279-9422. Again, 877-279-9422. Hi, this is Dr. Joel Wallach, the Mineral Doctor. You've heard me talk about 90 for Life for years. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 fatty acids. You may not know this, that I've actually designed Arthur decks for animals. That's right. Your pets need 90 for Life too. Get this essential pet product by calling 877-279-9422. That's 877-279-9422. Again, 877-279-9422.
There is an affordable alternative to the high cost of healthcare that offers freedom from insurance while providing compliance with the Obamacare individual mandate. Imagine having access to quality, affordable healthcare that allows you the freedom to choose your doctor and hospital. Members can share up to 100% of necessary medical expenses, including some alternative treatments. Find out how you and your family can contain healthcare costs without giving up your freedom. Go to libertyoncall.org. That's libertyoncall.org.
Warning, if you're drowning in debt you can't afford, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to pay it all back, because you don't. What the credit card companies don't want you to know is that there's actually a way to get debt-free without paying off your entire debt or going bankrupt. If you have $5,000 or more in credit card debt, you now have the right to settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Associates now. 1-800-954-9674. We'll even show you how much money you could save. If you can't afford to pay off all your debt, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to. Call Credit Associates now for free information on how to get debt-free faster than you ever thought possible without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We depend on your success and offer a guarantee, so there's no risk. For free information, call now. 1-800-954-9674. That's 1-800-954-9674. 1-800-954-9674.
By now you know that wireless technology like cell phones do in fact pose dangers to the health and privacy of everyone. Block-It Pocket's wide range of products are unmatched in providing the protection you deserve. No scare tactics, just common sense. BlockItPocket.com offers quality American-made options to alleviate and eliminate these invisible dangers. Learn more at BlockItPocket.com or call 888-315-9618. BlockItPocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So Arnie was picking up on the tale of what? Giant cannibals?
Well, I would tell the story of it's like a legendary tribe of red-haired cannibalistic giants that lived in the area where they were, and how in what is today called the Lovelock Cave of Nevada, and they were forced to kill them. There are so many stories out there. You even find stories of red-haired giants that lived on this land down in Georgia. So there are stories of cannibalistic giants who lived in the area of the Rio Grande, and where the tribes coming across from Mexico who came into the southeastern part of the United States had to make sure that they sneaked around the cannibalistic tribes there.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of stories of giants that lived and a lot of stories of defeating a giant that just terrorized the people.
Yeah, and down in Patagonia, I think early European explorers, rounding the Cape, the Straits of Magellan down there. There's one, actually several accounts of crew members going from their ship aboard, going to the land and looking for supplies and encountering huge, giants, for lack of a better description. You mentioned the Lovelock Caves in Nevada. Weren't there mummies that were discovered there, I think, in the 20s?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, they've discovered also petroglyphs down in the Supai Canyon in Arizona of these huge men attacking smaller men. In Georgia, as I was saying, they found a walled-off city off the coast of Georgia near the Sapelo Island. The city is actually thought to be older than the Egyptian pyramids. And ancient Indian legends actually refer to it as the walled city where the giants with hair like red flames dwelled.
Yeah.
In Chief Rolling Thunder of the Comanches, he talked of an ancient white race of giants. You'll find that in the history books in 1857. He said that there was a race of white men about 10 feet tall. And he said, far richer and more powerful than any white people living today, he said. That they inhabited the country and they their fortifications, they had fortifications that crowned the summits of mountains, he said. And he said that they would destroy anyone that came in. And he said that compared to the men who came later, they were like small men. And the same thing when in DeSoto, when he came into the Florida Panhandle, he came upon a group of people from the Muskegon culture, and you can see that today. The Spanish called them Los Indigio Gigantes, the giant Indians. But if you go to, I'm trying to think of the town now in northern Florida, where they have a whole museum there to this tribe of people that were giants, and of course anthropologists believe that it was due to selective breeding, whether that's the case or not.
Right. Maybe it was a farm club for the NBA.
Maybe. And Aztec legends tell about a giant race that lived in the Cholula Indians in Mexico. Say that the first race created by the gods were giants. The Chavan people of Peru were apparently giants. The Quiche Indians tell of a giant race who came from the Pacific Ocean and invaded their territory. And they said the giants were so huge that an ordinary man would only reach his kneecap.
Wow.
And, the Inca Indians also have stories about giants in Bolivia. Have you ever read that De Leon's book called The Chronicle of Peru, where he relates stories in there about giants who landed on the coast of Peru and the ancient legends of the people. So there are many, many stories out there of the giant races that inhabited North and South America.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that you have the two extremes. On one hand, you have very consistent stories of human type beings of immense stature, and you also have conversely, you have stories of organized groups of diminutive beings who are a foot to 2 feet tall and fully developed. Of course, you have the Pedro Mountain mummy that was found, I believe, in Idaho, of a 14-inch tall, middle-aged.
Nirumbe. They were thought to live here in the Pryor Mountains of Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also thought to have given visions to Pliniku. That was the great 20th century Crow chief. They were also credited and are credited today with keeping the Crow people safe. It is said that some of the members of the Crow tribe, even today, if they pass through the Pryor Gap, they will leave offerings for the little people in remembrance of what they did to aid the Crows. There's just dozens of stories of little people
Yeah.
And there you can find them in the Shoshone and the Arapaho down in Wyoming have all kinds of stories about the little people. Their little people are really mean.
Yes. Yeah. And I found an account from 1905 in the New Mexico Ethnographic Journal in the 1880s at the Picturas Pueblo in New Mexico. The Pueblo was attacked by an army of small 1.5 to 2 foot tall warriors, extremely fierce, and the Pueblo was almost overrun. And they had to literally send out for reinforcements from the Santa Clara Pueblo, and their warriors came and were able to drive them back. But this is in an esteemed ethnographic journal in 1905, and it was taken very seriously. The way the scientist or anthropologist who wrote this thing up, it was not done tongue in cheek. It was written just take away the descriptions of
true account of what was going on.
Right, and it was taken at face value by the researchers. Do you think there's any parallel? Could these giants and could these small diminutive types be somehow associated with some of the Star People legends? Could we find any sort of connecting point there? Or do you think we're dealing specifically with earthbound groups that have just developed differently?
Let's have that answer in our next segment, okay? Thanks.
Okay.
With Ardy Sixkiller Clarke and Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Are the answers to your present and future hidden in your past? Akashic readings help you learn to unlock the answers for love, finances, weight loss, self-esteem, confusion, grief and loss, and more. Akashic email readings by Dr. Kelly Maroon, PhD, are specially priced right now. Learn more at Dr. Kelly Maroon's website, akashicuniversal.com, spelled AKASHIC universal.com. Change your life today. Become one with your true path with intention on purpose. Visit akashicuniversal.com.
ProPure water filters, making water great again. Taste and feel the difference with state-of-the-art filter technology. Pro 1 G2.0 and Pro Max filters are independent lab-tested to NSF standards. Choose from Gravity, Countertop, Pitcher, Shower, and Inline filtration products. There's a ProPure for you. Buy risk-free today. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
Think about this. Your community's aging water infrastructure systems are very likely to be contaminated with heavy metals like lead, disinfection chemicals like ammonia, chlorine and chloramines, and pharmaceuticals like statins, pain meds, and antidepressants. And no, water treatment plants are not equipped to filter these pharmaceutical toxins out. Protect your family's water supply with the trusted Big Berkey water filter. New NSF EPA-certified lab tests show Big Berkey water filters remove chloramines, pharmaceuticals, BPA, pesticides, bacteria, and viruses, all forms of fluoride, and much more. Big Berkey water filters are the original and most trusted on the market, the gold standard in water purification, and our filters last for years at less than 2 cents per gallon. Big Berkey, the one powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get your Big Berkey today. Call 1-877-99-BERKEY or click BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
Will the government protect your family from Iran and North Korea's newest weapon, EMP? We buy guns to protect ourselves, home, health, and car insurance for accidents. Maybe you also have food storage. But how would you keep your refrigerator running in a long-term EMP blackout? Using tested military designs, the Solark EMP-hardened solar generator protects and powers your critical appliances for years without burying items underground or wrapping them in aluminum foil. Unlike other preps, Solark is used every day to help offset your electric bill automatically. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to learn how easily expandable the system is. Solark is the most affordable and powerful solution on the market. The whole system even fits in the back of a pickup or SUV and can install in less than an hour. See for yourself why Solark beats other off-grid systems at PortableSolarLLC.com. Don't wait for the government. Go to PortableSolarLLC.com to learn why Solark is energy insurance for your family.
This is Leslie Kane, and I'm with the Coalition for Freedom of Information, and you are listening to the Paracast.
So, Ardy, Chris asked you a question in our last segment, which now go ahead and respond to.
Well, I haven't heard that about the little people, but I certainly have heard it about giants, that there is a connection with the stars, that these are entities that come from the stars. Well, even the Paiute talk about these people that lived, when they came to that part of Nevada in that Lovelock area, that when they decided to leave, this was another group, not the Giants group, but that they, not the red-haired giants, but they talk about this other group that was very good to them. And when they left, they climbed ladders to the sky, they said. And that's why they say they married among the Paiutes, and that's why when the people came, when the white man first came to that part of the world, they found when these star people decided to leave, they had mated with earth women, and so they took the children who looked most like them with them, but they left behind the ones that looked more like the native people. And they said that's why even today you will find blonde-haired children that are Paiute, but it is because of their intermarriage with the star people.
Now, in general, if you're going to intermarry with another species, they have to be pretty close, genetically speaking.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they look like humans other than that they were fair and blonde and blue-eyed, apparently.
So basically, I can go across to the McDonald's restaurant and have a hamburger, and the person sitting just down from me could be a star person, and I probably wouldn't know.
That's right. Absolutely. At least that's what I've been told.
David Jacobs would just love to hear that because, we're getting into his territory of hybrids and they walk among us type scary stuff, which sounds great. Someone should do a screenplay. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is occasionally you'll, when you research this subject, invariably you'll run into accounts that talk about the return of these beings, and that seems to me to be a consistent element that you find in these stories, that they're gone now, they occasionally come back and visit, there is some sort of interaction, but there's that hint that at the end of this current world, we're going to have a very obvious return of these beings, leaving no room for interpretation. Have you encountered this, and what is your take on the return of the star people, and what kind of role that might play historically?
I haven't encountered that at all. That the whole idea is of the aliens are going to save us from ourselves, that giant spacecraft are going to come and take the faithful away while the rest of us, destroy each other. None of that have I ever encountered. And rarely, and I mean rarely in the stories I've collected, have I ever heard the idea that the star people are interested in helping to save us or gives advice on ways that we could change things, and it just doesn't happen. And yet I know there's a lot of stories like that.
Well, there's a lot of confabulation. I too have not heard anything about anyone from out there coming to solve us save us from ourselves.
We have to save ourselves, not somebody else.
Yeah. I wasn't even suggesting that as an element to the stories and kind of little twists at the end of legends that I've encountered. But
I think that it all goes together, though, don't you? Because you look at people suggesting that the star people are going to return after we destroy ourselves or before we destroy. That whole thing around 2012. The Maya loved it because it was a way for them to piggyback on this whole idea of the new age of the spacecraft showing up and carting away all of these believers.
Well,
because
they also
could sell things. You couldn't go to Palenque, and I would go to Palenque several times leading up to 2012, and you'd be
I was there too.
Accosted by young artists saying, "Do you want to see our Mayan astronaut?" And when you sit down with them and say, "Why are you doing this?" They say, "To make money." That's what the tourists like.
Well,
and, they would have these intricate carvings that were reproductions of the sarcophagus, which were just beautiful art pieces. But they would sell them, to these tourists who had come there to see the Palenque astronaut, all the time knowing that this absolutely was a falsehood and had nothing to do with the true story of King Pakal,
Yeah, I'm very, very knowledgeable about that subject. My brother has the finest reproduction of Pakal's sarcophagus lid done in native Palenque limestone. It is the finest in existence. It also has the activation hole behind the ear so that you can put in a little peg and with the knotted little knotted twine, you can do the calculations on the lid. I'm really up to speed on that. I was actually in Palenque in mid to late November 2012, staying at the Chanka, and finding out that the locals down there were jacking up prices up to 3-4 times.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. It was.
And it would be so interesting to watch them because I kind of developed a sign language. There are different dialects with the Maya, and of course I had a couple of guys who could speak, fluent. They were fluent in some of the different dialects. But often I'd find myself alone, with just a group of. I'd sit with those Maya artists there that were selling to the tourists just out of interest to watch the interaction, what was going on, and to see the kinds of things that they were loving it because they were making money.
Oh, it was.
But at the same time, they knew. I mean, they were exploiting the situation of all of this stuff that was coming out.
Yeah, and, that's called savvy. Being a savvy businessman. But getting back to my point that I was bringing up about the return of these celestial beings or the return of legendary figures. Now, what springs to mind for me, of course, here in the Southwest, is the return of True White Brother. And when he arrives before the end of the fourth world, he's not coming to save all our problems and save us from ourselves or solve all our problems. He's coming to kill all the Kahopi or the false Hopi. And the story has a kind of an unpleasant twist that generally it could be translated as he will be decapitating all the people that have lost the true way, do not honor nature, are not living the golden rule. And these people will lose their heads. how Grandfather Martin, he kind of struggled a little bit to give me the sort of the literal translation. But basically what he was saying is it's going to be kind of like the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland. It's off with their heads, kind of French
it's very
Revolution stuff.
To Christianity telling you if you don't follow the 10 Commandments, you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that always when it's associated with that religious aspect is that punishment of the non-believer or the sinner or the ones who've lost their way. So when I look at some of these Hopi stories, I just see such a spiritual component that it is a threat to the people that you better follow this or you're going to burn, your heads are going to be lopped off or you're going to burn in hell if you're a Christian.
Let's continue here with more of this with Gene and Chris and Ardy. You're in
the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails t-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast jumbo tote bag, all sorts of t-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great t-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
How confident are you in your food storage? If it was all you had to rely on, would it sustain your family? Hard times, good times, or any time, NuManna Storable Food is the proven superior choice. Learn for yourself what happened when one man ate only NuManna Storable Food for an entire month. Online at powerprepper.com. That's powerprepper.com. Experience the NuManna difference.
American-made food stores I love to eat. Yum!
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Fully cooked, ready-to-eat bacon. I'm talking thick, meaty, center-cut presidential bacon. Savory and delicious. I buy some, I use some, I store some. Awesome. No refrigeration needed with a 10-year shelf life. NASA-packed technology. Bacon. Fully cooked, fully hydrated, ready to eat right from the packed bacon. Or warm and served. Life-saving, ready-to-eat bacon. 10-year shelf life bacon. Ships free at fullycookedbacon.com. Fullycookedbacon.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Introducing the fastest growing digital currency company in the world, OneLife, With over 2.1 million members, OneCoin is becoming the most powerful force in digital currency. It reached over $1 billion in revenue in its first year. No other company has accomplished such an impressive feat. Now you can achieve financial independence with the strength of one life. Find out how to build your financial dreams. 877-933-4747. 877-933-4747. Dedicated to helping you create financial abundance.
Hey, this is Marie D. Jones, the author of This Book is from the Future, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
You know, when I hear this, you're going to get their heads lopped off because they're Christian. It sounds like ISIS or ISIL.
I know. It does, doesn't it?
Oh, boy.
Well, here's another example of the return of a star being. Doesn't the story of White Buffalo Calf woman talk about her returning at the end of this current world, and that the people will know it's time for her return when the white buffalo herd is born?
I think that is a perhaps a part of their story, but I'm not. It's not a part, as far as I know, of the traditional story, because the traditional story says that the white buffalo woman disappeared over the horizon after she told them.
Right.
The people saw her walking off and outlined against the red ball of the setting sun. And
Right.
as she went, she stopped and rolled over 4 times. The first time she turned into a black buffalo, the second time into a brown one, and the third into a red one. And finally, the fourth one, she rolled over and she turned into a white female buffalo.
Right.
And the white buffalo is the most sacred living thing you could ever encounter if you are a Lakota.
Yeah.
And then they say, maybe sometime she will come back. But I know that some of the appearance of the white buffalo was foretelling of a major change to take place. So that's all I've ever heard.
Well, you know the story of the herd, right? Miracle Moon was born in May 1998 to the
Right.
Jim and Dina Riley, right outside, I think, of Pine
I
Ridge.
know the white buffalo being born, but a second one was born, wasn't that?
No, the herd has 19 animals in it, or that was the total number of white buffalo that have been born to that particular herd. There's 19 of them.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, a bunch of them have already passed on and died. Only one has died of violence, and that was the 9th one was struck by lightning. But that herd used to be right here.
Stories that much, so I really can't speak intelligently about it.
Yeah, that particular herd, after the second one was born in 1999 and their ranch for the second time became Mecca, the Rileys decided to move, and they were fast talked into getting a ranch at 8,000 feet right at the base of the San Francisco Peaks. In 2010, we had about 30 feet of snow there, and poor Jim was struggling through the snow with hay bales to keep the buffalo fed, and he died of a massive heart attack. And a group of us got together and helped Dina raise several $1 million to move the ranch to down to sea level. First to Ashland, Oregon, and then now the herd is in Ukiah, California, and they've had a total, I think, of 19 born. I have a little video on my YouTube channel. It tells the story if you're interested.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, pretty amazing story. And these animals, I've seen. I saw, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 of them. I think when I did the video, they are an anomaly. They are not albinos. They have brown eyes. They go through a complete color change, as you described, from white to beige, beige to brown, brown to red, red to black, and then back, reverse. It takes about 1.5 years for them to go through the color change, but they're not albinos, and they have not been born from the same parents. They've been born from different pairings. It's statistically impossible for this to take place. But according to what I heard, is that this supposedly is a sign that white buffalo calf woman is returning. As you said, there's going to be a great change, similar to the version of the Maya and the Hopi myths of not so much, an apocalypse, the world's going to end and we're all going to die, but a great change that would signal the end of this current world. And boy, I'll tell you right now, we could use a reboot, a reset right now, the way things are going on this planet. I think it's, and you'll probably agree that we're living in an age of dysfunctional. Well, don't get me going, then we'll start talking about politics.
No politics, please.
Yeah.
But I think,
you and our listeners.
I just haven't talked to any elders about, the appearance of the white buffalo and what it might mean for the future. And if it is an indication that white buffalo woman is coming back, all I have been told is that it's a warning of a great change that's going to come upon the earth unless we change our ways.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have a feeling that. And
I know too. I'll go to different reservations, and people say you need to come home. You need to come here and live and get out of
right.
where you are. Because this is the only place that's going to be safe. You need to come back. So there's I even ran onto a Lacandone Indian down in near Palenque who told me that.
Oh, they're wonderful.
I'm already prepared, and my family is prepared for this end to come. And he says, you're welcome to come and stay with us.
Yeah. Yep. You have to be above, I think it's above 7,000 feet. And of course, the Lacandone live in the highlands and around Palenque, San Cristobal, and that's in the highlands. So it's above the high water mark.
Well, at least you have an exit plan. I don't like heights, so I'm stuck where I am.
Well, I already live at almost 6,000 feet, so I won't have too far to climb.
Yeah, you won't have to go far. I'll probably have beachfront property here if all this comes to pass. Of course, you have to take all these stories, they're with a grain of salt. There is a certain amount of allegory going on here, and morality tales and
right.
such. But I think at the heart of it, it does speak to some sort of truth, and I do really feel that things are going to get a lot more dicey before we see some sort of golden age.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you.
That we come out on the other end doing a lot better.
Yeah.
Well, I sure hope so. Maybe, I could be persuaded then to, close my eyes, take a trip where I'm not really aware of the higher height, and then maybe I'll be able to tolerate it. But right now, when you're telling me you're living 7,000 feet, or my friends in Colorado living in elevated destinations, that's fine for them, and they can enjoy themselves, or as we say back in Brooklyn, mazel tov, but not yet for me. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, again, this has been a lot of fun to talk about all these legends and their impact. Can you tell our listeners if they want more information about the things you've done, where they can check you out?
Sure, they can go to my website at www.sixkiller.com, or they can write me directly at Ardy, A-R-D-Y, at sixkiller.com. I answer every email, so if you guys want to write me, do so.
And you're also invited to our forums at forum.theparacast.com, because sometimes our guests go over there and see what our listeners have to say. And sometimes it gets to be kind of interesting. You can check us out on Twitter. If you look for The Paracast, look for The Paracast on Twitter. I'm not super active there, and I really should be. But I mostly just announced episodes of the show. On Facebook...
Tweet. Tweet.
Chris didn't just do that.
Tweet.
I am imagining this. I am having some kind of weird paranormal experience or just a plain nightmare. You can find us on Facebook. 2 Paracast fan clubs. Let him make a sound for that. Okay, you see, I finally got him to quiet down. We also have a second radio show called After the Paracast. It's a show that consists of color commentary, general conversations, special guest interviews, and more. But you can only get it if you subscribe to the Paracast Plus at plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. We also give you a commercial-free version of this show. Better quality audio And if you subscribe for 5 years or even take a lifetime subscription, and they're real special rates too, by the way, we'll give you free ebooks. And sometimes I offer special premiums for my collection of UFO material. So someone who subscribed lifetime got a whole collection of sci-fi magazines from me in addition to the lifetime subscription. Check out plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. Thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Well, you're sure welcome. I always enjoy talking to you guys. I never know where the conversation is going to go, but I love it. Thank you.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.